We can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Woo! Yeah, those weapons of war that he carried in war, that's the only place they end up. Yeah, woo! Joe Biden also used the phony bloodbath thing yesterday during a fluff job with CBS Fake News. Remarkable stuff. And the Democrats, they love Tampon Tim. They think it's the greatest nickname ever because they've got a lot of very serious mental issues, psychological issues. The Los Angeles Times, with the headline, Tampon Tim is a litmus test for American men. No, it's not. And they have Anita Chabria typing up the piece for the radical extreme left wing with gender dysphoria and other kinds of mental illnesses. And Anita writes, there are 88 days until the election, and today we're talking vaginas. That's the lead sentence in the Los Angeles Times piece. You may be aware that approximately 50% of the planet has one. I was aware of that. You guys seem to have some issues with that, including your Supreme Court justice, but never mind that. You may also be aware that approximately 49.56% of the remaining population is freaked out by talking about them. That's only because you hang out with Democrats. That's completely untrue. Of course, that's always lead with a series of falsehoods, including seemingly 100% of MAGA men. MAGA men are normal men. You see, that's normal. Remember, normal. If you can, just as at the Chris Plant store online, we have Remember Normal t-shirts. We're the normal people. We know what men are. We know what women are. You guys are the ones that have the problem with that. You guys have a lot of issues. Combine that with the anti-transgender manic panic currently covering the Trump world like blue eyeshadow on a drag queen. Don't bring your father and your son into it, but if you prefer. And it's little surprise to learn that new vice presidential candidate Tim Walz has been branded Tampon Tim by the far right. It's everybody's the far right if you're not a communist, baby slaughtering, organ harvesting, rioting, looting, arsonist, mental case who doesn't know what gender is, which is your typical Democrat. We know MAGA is obsessed with determining what makes a woman a woman. No, actually, you guys have the mental issue. Once again, we know what a woman is. We cracked the genetic code years ago. You're welcome. You know, the patriarchy, white men. Just be glad you can hang with us. We know what women are. We're the ones that know what women are. You're the ones that don't know what women are. We're the ones, ipso facto, that know what men are. You guys are the ones that have all the problems with the drag queens for the kindergarten kids and the, flapping their junk in front of the little kiddies' faces at your school events before after-school Satan Club. But they love to lash out like the mental cases that they are. This article is a pretty good example of the mental illness that is the Democrat Party. Now, men are men and women are women. Their theme song is Lola. They think boys will be girls and girls will be boys. It's a mixed-up world, and she's a mixed-up girl. That was Lola, but that's another thing altogether. But underneath that hoo-ha hysteria is their real question, the anxious quandary that seems to drive their anger and fear. It's your anger and fear and your mental illness. We're not angry. We're not fearful. We're perfectly comfortable over here. We know that our wives and our girlfriends are women, our mothers were women, our fathers were men. We're perfectly normal over here. You are having a mental breakdown. And she claims the great question is, what makes a man a man? You guys get back to me when you've sorted that out. We've got the genetic code over here. We can explain it in a lot of ways. You're born this way. And I know a lot of you grew up to be gay. And look, conservatives grow up to be. Gay people grow up to be conservative if they grow up. We've got, at this radio station, one of our great people, great producers, is a gay man and a great conservative and hilarious and smart and fun. And the fact that he's gay is not really important to anybody. That's his life, and And everybody's fine because he's not a crazy person like you people at the Los Angeles Times. And she types in the Los Angeles Times, let's break that down. What makes a man? The why, the whatever, and the what it really means. Now, this is just completely insane. They're nuts. The why. Women menstruate. Yeah, we figured that out. We noticed that. Girls do too. Yeah, after a certain point, yeah. Even girls who go to school. Yeah, we know that. Sometimes these girls forget to take tampons or pads and find themselves in an embarrassing and uncomfortable situation of bleeding through their clothing. You should probably get more graphic with that, don't you think? In recent years, the absurdity of not making it easy to get basic sanitary products to half the country has dawned on legislators across America. You know, none of this is news to anybody. This is we've all been keeping up for like more than a half century on all of this. It's not, I don't know where you people have been, but normal people over here have been taking care of business all over the place. Even conservative Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who in 2023 signed a bill making the Lone Star State the 25th in the nation to eliminate the pink tax or sales tax on period products. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Tampon Tim putting feminine products in boys' rooms, all right? And that's what we're talking. None of this has anything to do with it, but they've got this mental illness. So they're lashing out all over the place, and they're angry, and they're mentally ill. And naturally, they accuse you of being angry and having a problem of some kind because they're projecting. I think you're projecting, right? It's a legislative push that's been around since 2015. Whatever you're talking about, it's not about Tampon Tim. But this is the Los Angeles Times. The Los Angeles Times, and it's an award-winning newspaper. The logic is that half the people on the planet are doing it, so it must be penalized for it. Now, nobody's ever said, you guys are mentally ill. That's lame, harming women's health, well-being, and opportunities. You're having a mental breakdown. But this is the Democrat Party, and the article goes on and on and on and on and on and on, and it never addresses Tampon Tim putting women's products in men's rooms because you guys have got real issues, and you think boys are girls, and boys menstruate, and boys get pregnant, and boys have babies. That's what we're doing, is pointing out that you're mentally troubled, that you're mentally impaired, that you need help, and we're here to help you. We're trying to help. But you're too mentally ill to even have a civil conversation about these issues that you created. And when we notice that you've created these issues, then you lash out and attack us for being sane and rational and being aware of the fundamentals of science that, honestly, civilizations have been up to speed on all of this for thousands of years, thanks to the patriarchy primarily. The amount of transgender apoplexy coming from the far right is astounding. No, just stop flapping the junk in the faces of the kindergarten kids. Go off and, in Washington, D.C., they have drag races out in the streets of DuPont Circle every year. People used to gather around and have fun and laugh and stuff. They have drag brunch at restaurants in Washington, and people go and find it amusing, and the bearded men dressed in like women. It's all amusing stuff. Been going on for decades and decades. Nobody had a problem with any of that. But you guys have taken it to crazy land. And we're going to have to point out that you're crazy because you're corrupting children with your child sexual abuse and gender queer books with graphic depictions of man-on-boy sex and boy-on-man sex, and you're training, grooming kids. Now, those are the issues. But here in the Los Angeles Times, and that insanity is where Tampon Tim originates, an attempt to make walls seem both predatory and dangerous to kids, when in fact he is the opposite. Now, this is just our news media, and none of this is true, but if you read this and you think it's true, then they're leading you down the mental illness path. They're leading you into crazy land. And they make the abnormal seem normal, as they make the normal seem abnormal. And then she writes, in fact, I'm thinking Tampon Tim might be something to be proud of. Like he's a guy who's comfortable enough in his own skin to be okay with vajayjays and their many abilities and functions. Now, once again, We are so far ahead of you. We're centuries ahead of you. We are generations and generations ahead. You are having some problems, and maybe the family members, if you have any of those, could intervene on your behalf and try to help you through these difficulties, through these troubles. But that's the Los Angeles Times, and they're trying to spin it into if you make fun of somebody, and they don't mock very well. Their boy, Saul Alinsky, a communist who was worshipped by and is worshipped by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton actually did an internship with Saul Alinsky. Rules for Radicals, author and all that stuff, where he explained mockery is your most potent weapon because your enemy, as they call their next-door neighbors, cannot recover from ridicule and mockery. And so conservatives long ago, certainly I, adopted that Saul Alinsky rule and mockery and ridicule. Indeed, as Saul Alinsky explained, and, Barack Obama is an Alinskyite. He taught Alinskyism when he was supposed to be teaching law. And he posted proudly photos of him teaching Saul Alinsky and Rules for Radicals when he was supposed to be teaching law because he's a leftist, not a liberal. Hillary Clinton literally interned with Saul Alinsky himself, a leftist, not a liberal. And ridicule works. And so Tim Walz is today the subject of ridicule because he put feminine hygiene products in the boys' rooms in schools. And that we know is scientifically unsound. But again, Joe Biden nominated a Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was asked what is a woman and said she's not a biologist, so she couldn't explain what a woman is. She is a woman. I can tell her that she's a woman. I know what a woman is because I'm a man, not in spite of the fact that I'm a man, but because I'm a man, I can explain what a woman is. And because I'm not very severely mentally impaired, like this typist at the Los Angeles Times, Anita Chabria, who is a columnist there and has a lot of very serious mental issues. The Democrat Party. So now it's proud, and if you're a man and you call him Tampon Tim, then you've got a problem. No. Once again, you're wrong about everything. But at least you're consistent. The Democrat Party. So I wasn't even fond of using the Tampon Tim thing. I think it's a little this and a little that. But the lashing out by the Democrat Party, by the left, might actually make it more popular, the Tampon Tim label, because you guys don't know what men are and you don't know what women are. We do. And this article, once again, proves that you guys have a lot of issues that you ought to be working out in private and not in public. Please see your therapist, Anita. You're unwell. See biology. You're probably aware of the fact that your feet support you throughout all your summer adventures and your everyday activities. And, you might be tired of shoes that promise to deliver comfort, but fail to deliver. Introducing G-Defy shoes with VersaShock technology. Unlike ordinary brands of shoes, G-Defy shoes offer superior shock absorption and trampoline-like energy return underneath your feet. I've got a pair. They're great. My best girl has a pair. They're going to help provide you with relief from foot pain, knee pain, ankle pain, even problems with your back sometimes. I love my shoes, and my G-Defy shoes, whether you're an athlete, a busy parent, just always on the go, G-Defy shoes offer the comfort and versatility your feet crave. So say goodbye to discomfort and hello to unparalleled support this summer. Every pair of G-Defy shoes include 2 free supportive orthotics and a special lateral stabilizer to help improve your stride or the way you run. As a listener to this show, you get to enjoy a special summer offer. All you have to do is visit gdefy.com, and you're going to get $20 off your order of $100 or more with the code CHRIS, C-H-R-I-S, that's me. GDEFY.com, G-Defy shoes. Don't forget to use the code CHRIS for $20 off your order of $100 or more. Experience ultimate summer comfort with G-Defy shoes. Visit gdefy.com today. Yeah, your Democrat Party. All right, I've got more politics. Not that media isn't politics, because it is. But they put the ladies' products in the men's rooms in schools, and when you mock them, they have a mental meltdown. And the mainstream news media, they're all over it. They think it's a proud moniker because they're all mentally ill.
You're listening to The Chris Plante Show.
All right. This Democrat VP pick is trouble, and our news media is corrupt, but you knew that. Let's go to a telephone call, Jeff. Let's go to Alexander, calling from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Alexander, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet your bottom dollar.
Give you a little background. My last Raider in the Army became the Chief of the Army Reserve. My Warwick College classmate became Chief of the National Guard Bureau. I was appointed by the Army as the president of a Waste, Fraud, and Abuse Board. And this stuff in Minnesota, wherever that guy's from, what type of papers did he sign before he found out that they were going to go to overseas? We had the authority to listen to these guys, and if he committed fraud, waste, fraud, and abuse, in this situation, I would seriously consider having him removed with a dishonorable discharge.
Wow.
He is not setting a good example for the troops. He spent a lot of time getting the good side out of it, but when it came to doing something he didn't like, his word was no good.
Well, I'll tell you what, Alexander, even Newsweek magazine, just an hour ago or so, Newsweek magazine, National Guard disputes Tim Walz's military biography. And the Minnesota National Guard and Lieutenant Colonel Kristen Augie, the state public affairs officer, came out and said that he did not retire at the rank of Command Sergeant Major, even though that rank is posted on his congressional website, on the campaign website. He's told the news media all of that. So he is falsely claiming a rank that he does not possess. And let's play, Jeff, that little soundbite of him claiming that he went to war with weapons of war.
In war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Yep. That's a little bit of fraud, too. Now, did he say that while he was in uniform?
No, he said it while he's in Congress, though.
Oh, well, but the other part, when he found out they were going to go overseas, that didn't suit his plans. But he submitted some papers that he signed.
And then he failed to follow through.
This is the Chris Plante Show.
So even Newsweek magazine now being forced against their will to admit, because it was first reported in Just the News, the John Solomon organization, that the Minnesota National Guard is disputing Governor Tim Walz's military biography, saying the Democratic vice presidential candidate did not hold the rank of Command Sergeant Major at the time of retirement, held the rank briefly, but they explained the Lieutenant Colonel Kristen Augie, state public affairs officer for the Minnesota National Guard, told Just the News yesterday, Wednesday, that the governor did not retire at the rank of Command Sergeant Major in 2005, as is stated on Minnesota's official website for the governor, but as a Master Sergeant, which is a proud rank, and he should just have told the truth, but instead he lies where the truth would have worked better, because he's a Democrat. Now, the Lieutenant Colonel, the public affairs woman for the Minnesota National Guard, said because he did not complete additional coursework at the U.S. Army Sergeants Major Academy, A soldier who does not complete the required coursework is automatically demoted, according to Army regulations. The National Guard statement to Just the News, and not the New York Times or CNN or anything, right? The National Guard statement comes just a day after Vice President Kamala Harris revealed that she picked Walls as her running mate, and the two made their debut as the Democratic ticket on Tuesday at a rally in Philadelphia. Newsweek magazine reached out to Walls' office via email for comment, meaning that they got no response. It's not the first time Walls has faced scrutiny over his military background. When he first ran for governor in 2018, two retired senior officials with the Minnesota National Guard wrote an op-ed, which I shared with you the day before yesterday on this radio show, criticizing Walls for retiring shortly before his battalion was set for active duty deployment to Iraq, quitting months before they were ordered to mobilize, and leaving the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery soldiers hanging. And I shared with you that article day before yesterday, and also one of the authors is the person I shared audio with you earlier today on this very radio broadcast. But honestly, what they do in the media is they spend their time attacking Republicans that point out the truth. Honestly. Now, Thomas Behrens, and I played the audio of Thomas Behrens for you earlier today, said he had the opportunity to serve his country and said, "Screw you," to the United States. That's not who I would pick to run for vice president, said Thomas Behrens, one of the retired command sergeant majors, or sergeants major, who signed the letter, and it was published in the New York Post, but not the New York Times or the Washington Post. And our media, again, the most corrupt institution in America. Amazing. All right, let's get to a little bit of audio here, Jeff. Let's go to soundbite number 8, because I wanted to get to this earlier. Again, the New York Times reporting today that Kamala Harris has had a couple of powwows with her media pals aboard Air Force Two, flying to campaign events, but they were off the record. So there's no reporting on it. It's just sucking up and the Circle Fest in a hot tub that we all know so well. But there will be no reporting on it. It's just chumming around, palling around. And that's it. And even communist, self-described communist Van Jones on CNN said, well, gee, she is running for president. Maybe it's not good enough to not do any press conferences for 18 days, not do any interviews for 18 days, not answer any questions. And the fact that they've got a secret off-the-record Circle Fest on the campaign plane just shows how corrupt the news media is covering her.
I'm not mad that she's not doing 15 interviews a day, but it can't last. It's very important, and we can't, make favorites. Anybody running for the top office needs to be as available as possible.
Yeah, it needs to be as available, but the Democrats don't. And again, this year and 2020 combined may change the way presidential elections are done permanently in the United States of America. Because why would the Democrats ever go back to taking questions and on and on? Having press conferences, doing interviews. I mean, when they do interviews, they sit down with Democrat Party officials like George Stephanopoulos and Jake Tapper and Jim Sciutto and Chunk Todd and the list goes on, where they're fluffed and not interrogated. Isn't that amazing? Let's go to number 9 from an older interview. This is Governor Walz, the not a command sergeant major who didn't go to Iraq when his unit did.
I spent 24 years in the National Guard, some of that full-time. I was an artilleryman. I deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. My battalion provided base security throughout the European theater from Turkey to England in the early stages of the war in Afghanistan. And that same battalion is now in Iraq at this time.
The battalion is now in Iraq at this time. It was back then when he did the interview He left out some vital details, of course, and the news media either too intellectually lazy, journalistically lazy, or disinterested, or corrupt to be well-versed enough on the subject to follow up. The old art of the follow-up question. Amazing stuff. Yes, sir. And a little bit from my Newsmax program last night. This is Governor Walz, a little bit of a flashback.
I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt.
Spent 25 years in the Army. When it came time to deploy, that's when it was time to get out of the Army. And I hunt. What do you hunt? I want to know what he hunts. You think he really hunts? It's like cucarachas. What does he? Does he hunt rabbits? Somehow I even doubt that. And you can't take his word for anything, quite obviously, which is why the Democrats chose him, I guess. Isn't that amazing? And, of course, there's the... well, let's play it again anyway, because here he is on the Second Amendment.
I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Woo! It's not a weapon of war that you didn't carry in war because you didn't go to war, because you dropped out just in time to not go to war, even though your unit was in line to go to Iraq. Isn't that amazing? Just amazing. And let's do 11A, because this is the sort of the money soundbite of the day.
We can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Those weapons of war that I carried in war. But he didn't. He didn't carry those weapons of war in war. And that means he's lying and he's misrepresenting himself. And Alexander, who we were just speaking to on the line, one of our great listeners that called in, extremely well qualified to address these issues, and saying that he should probably get a dishonorable discharge, even at this late stage, laying claim to the rank of Command Sergeant Major when that, in fact, is not his rank. He was reduced in rank, demoted, if you will, because he did not complete the requisite coursework and so on to maintain the rank of Command Sergeant Major. But again, when you're a Democrat, not a problem. Not a problem at all. Now, Kamala and her lion-thieving running mate had a big event yesterday where she's announcing, hey, forget about the inflation that Joe Biden brought. What we're all about is bringing prices down, because the prices have to come down because everything's so expensive that really the price of everything is too high. And I should point out that while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been in charge, the inflation rate on Inauguration Day, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took office, the inflation rate was 1.4% in the United States, and it went up to 9.1% on their watch. Everything we're buying, groceries, food, restaurant, up about 22% since they took office. The inflation rate is currently 3%, which is more than twice as high as it was on Inauguration Day. And it's better than 9.1% that they drove it up to. But here's Kamala saying they're just the people to get prices down.
We believe in a future where we lower the cost of living for America's families so that they have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. When I am president, it will be a day one priority to fight to bring down prices.
Yeah, well, that'd be a good idea. You're vice president now. Haven't been doing a very good job of that, but you be our low prices czar. You do as good a job with that as you've done as the border czar. I think she's the space czar too, isn't she? Remember when they brought in the child actors from California that they had the rehearsals for and the auditions, and they brought it to sit on the front porch at the vice president's residence and pretend to ooh and ah the idea that you can see the craters on the moon with your own eyes, which everybody's been able to do since, we crawled out of the primordial ooze, but never mind that. And Tim Walz, he loves bragging about being a left-winger. He's been doing it for years.
Governor Walz, are you a progressive or are you a centrist?
I'm a progressive. Don't ever shy away from our progressive values.
Not a centrist.
One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. More police are there, the more tension it is. Protecting and supporting access to gender-affirming health care is essential.
More police, the more tension there is. Well, for criminals, your sons and sometimes your daughters, who are also sometimes your sons, since we're still back on that whole thing. And he said, he was asked, are you a progressive, a left-wing radical, or a centrist? And he rejected the idea that he's a centrist. He threw that out. And he's anti-police, and he's pro-defund the police, and he's pro-crime. Crime has skyrocketed on his watch in Minnesota and certainly in Minneapolis. In Minnesota, under Tim Walz, violent crime is up 30%. They can do that for the country, just like what they've done for the economy. The police forces in the state of Minnesota have been reduced by 40%. But violent crime is up 30%. They don't see a correlation. And price increases, his time as governor, up 22%. 22%. And at least 50,000 people have fled the state of Minnesota because, since he took office, presumably because of his policies and his economics and the crime. I mean, again, violent crime up 30% in the state. And if you look at Minneapolis in particular, which they allowed to burn and refused to call up the National Guard and so on, amazing. I am telling you. And he attacked J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, who came from very modest, very humble beginnings, Appalachia, and his mother, a drug-addicted alcoholic, was not there for him, raised largely by his grandmother. Tough upbringing, fought his way. He graduated from high school, went into the Marine Corps. He actually went to Iraq when it was a country where there was a war going on. And then he came back and he worked his way through the Ivy League and Yale. And here is Tim Walz, who loves rioting and looting and arson, attacking him for being the great American success story.
Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on.
Come on.
That's not what middle America is.
He did write a bestseller.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
A hillbilly elegy story about his humble upbringing didn't demonize anybody. He's a lion Sacagawea, this guy. He lies about everything. Again, attacking a man much better than himself.
That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So.
Yeah, he got off the couch and he went to Iraq in a Marine Corps uniform. Unlike you, pretty remarkable stuff. And then the media loves this. The creepy. Now again, these are the people with After School Satan Club. Creepy. The guys with the transgender twerking in front of the kindergarten classes. Creepy. The guys with the Gender Queer Book, a how-to guide for little boys to perform sex acts on grown men. Kind of a creepy bunch of people. The creepy people, he passed a law providing for secret transgender treatments and surgeries for children while keeping their parents in the dark. And this creep has the temerity, the audacity, the mendacity to call anybody else creepy.
You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
Yeah. I said, what's the name of the Deputy Secretary, cross-dressing transgender person at Health and Human Services? And who's their luggage thief, nuclear person at the... Honestly, you guys, again, they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. You guys are so creepy. Once again, no sense of irony. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. And I've got a funny one here from a member of Congress speaking up about him as well, about Walz. Pretty funny stuff. And again, the Minnesota National Guard says that Tim Walz's military biography, saying his command sergeant major, is wrong, a lie, false. He presumably knows it. which is their prerequisite for being a liar. And Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia on X says Trump saw more combat in Butler, Pennsylvania than Walls ever did in the National Guard.
There's only one Chris Plante. The Chris Plante Show.
Yeah, they call people creepy, and they've got their energy. What was the Deputy Assistant Secretary Sam Brinton stealing women's luggage at airports across America to dress up in their clothes, the guy in charge of nuclear waste for Biden. That's creepy. And then, who is it? Rachel Levine, the transgender HHS deputy, said, creepy. You guys shouldn't be. And speaking of which, yesterday at the rally with Kamala, a bunch of pro-jihad Jew haters showed up and were chanting, Kamala, Kamala, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide or something. Yeah, we won't vote for genocide because if you support the Jews, then you support genocide. She responded to that.
I'm here because we believe in democracy. Everyone's voice matters, but I am speaking now.
Yeah, they're chanting the genocide thing, that they hate the Jews from the river to the sea, and they're wearing hijabs. The Democrat Party is part of the worldwide jihad, and they literally are at this point. She's also talking about an arms embargo against Israel. Now, the Biden administration has been funneling billions and billions to Iran, which is funding Hamas, which is an actual genocidal death cult. Never mind that. And she's pretending she's standing up. I'm speaking now. Sure you are. By the way, in the New York Post today, a majority of Americans believe the First Amendment goes too far, according to a new poll. I think left-wingers must be behind the poll. Free speech suppression on college campuses and social media censorship often spur debates on how far the First Amendment should go to protect Americans' rights to free speech. And who should be entrusted with those decisions? About 53% of Americans believe the First Amendment goes too far in the rights it protects, according to a new poll by the nonprofit group Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. They call themselves FIRE. So probably a gang of leftists. The new poll finds that a majority of us now think the First Amendment goes too far. They would suppress free speech. They would take away your Second Amendment rights and your religious rights, as they've done with, a high school coach out on the West Coast wants to say a prayer after. They're not on our side.